Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And this week on the show we have
Audrey Hughey.
Yes, we do. And it's such a great interview. Audrey is an author, but she also has planners and just different tools for authors to kind of get them headed in the right direction and to help them take that next step. And it was just such a great interview.
Yeah, it's very, when I think of planners and organizing and stuff,
Yes.
Sometimes it seems like the advice is very restricted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, and Audrey's not like that at all. She's created this stuff and she wants you to use it however it works for you and modify it for you. And we talk a lot about like what to do when your plans don't work.
Yep.
And, you know, how to,
when life happens.
Yeah. Like, and the difference between like a target and a goal.
Yes.
And kind of reducing your stress. So it's really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And it's a great interview for us going into 2022. So I know a lot of people have probably already made their 2022 plans, but some people haven't. And I think that this really will be helpful and really great information. And we are recording this actually on
the 11th. Yes, so it's a little early.
A little early because this is going to come out on the 21st, but we are taking next week off, the 28th. So there won't be a podcast because we're also giving our team the week off. And so we'll see you back in 2022. Can y'all believe that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I find I'm much better at looking back at the previous year than looking ahead. I'm terrible. Yes. I have like my futuristic on the Strengths Finder is probably like one of my lowest ones. I have no future vision. So I can look back and go, oh, this year I did this.
Yeah.
But then looking ahead is really hard for me.
It's very hard.
I love planners. I love buying planners. I love calendars. I love stationery and all that stuff. So we talk about that in the interview too, about how you have to find the right thing that works for you. So
Right.
Very funny.
So we should get on with the interview because it's really great. And again, we'll see you in 2022.
Yeah, here we go. So today we are really excited to talk with Audrey Hughey. Hi, Audrey. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you?
We're great. We're glad you're here. We're so, I think this is going to be a good episode for all of us. So we're happy you're here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about organization and staying on track and planning. So I think it'll be really good, especially for this time of year.
Yes. I love doing all of this stuff this time.
All right. Well, let me read your bio and then we'll get started. Audrey Hughey is the founder of the Author Transformation Alliance, a community dedicated to the uplifting and empowering authors of all stages to reach their vision of success step by step with powerful network to support and guide them. She is also the creator of the Author's Planner.
Very good. So tell us like how you got into working with authors, because I know you're an author yourself and we'll talk about that in a minute, but how did you start working with authors?
Yeah. So I love this because it so speaks to the idea that we should be exploring, not just in our youth, but I mean, throughout our lives, we should be exploring our interests. So I was working as a contractor, commuting into the DC area. And I still, even with that commute and the working hours, I still couldn't get enough of my extra interests. So on top of writing, I was in this great critique group with the Shenandoah Valley writers because I'm at the top of the valley. And we were doing these critique groups, and once a month we'd meet up and actually go to Harrisonburg. And I really loved it. And I got to read A Man of Character by Margaret Locke, and which is a fantastic book, and she's a fantastic author. She hit the USA Today bestseller list when she was still really active, and so I got to read that. That's her first book she released. And there were other authors. I got to read their early works. And this was a group that wasn't just getting together and like griping about writing. They were actually doing it.
Yeah.
I think we've all been part of those.
Yes, yes.
So so along with her and others, and everybody's very publishing minded, very professional. And at the time, the president at the time of the Virginia Writers Club, which is the oldest writing club in the US, by the way, she was also part of that group. So she exuded professionalism, Maggie Duncan or Fallacy Duncan. And so it was something, it was kind of a culture in that group. And so it was professional covers, it was professional editing, it was setting up our own imprints, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And she really helped everyone do that. Everyone helped each other. But when it came to marketing, there was a problem where the book would get released and everybody, made these wonderful, and like you have to front end investments in publishing, and then no sales. And I said, okay, well, what was your marketing plan? Because at the time I was doing a combination of, on top of my fiction writing, copywriting and magazine writing. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, what was your marketing plan? And what marketing plan? And I'm like, no, don't be sad, because people can't say yes or no to your book if they don't know about it.
Right.
So I started helping the people in my critique group first, and then it quickly spiraled out of control, out of the time available that I had, which was already pretty limited. So I said, gosh, what's a format I can use to make sure I'm helping as many people as possible? Because I'm really saying a lot of the same things over and over and over again, just to different people. So that's why I set up the Author Transformation Alliance, because I was like, I'm going to build this library of videos, and we want a website. So it's hosted on something I can control. That's not Facebook finicky or anything else. And so it's just going to be a nominal fee where it helps pay for this website. And so that's really how it was born, and how me helping other authors was born, was because out of me helping my friends in the critique group, more people like, well, go ask Audrey. She can help. Go ask Audrey. And it was like, come on, guys. I mean, I love that I'm helping. And I'm like, wow, if something I can do, being just a little bit ahead in one area or another, can lend a hand and uplift someone else or empower them, then I have to do it. Right. I have to be there. And it's this weird thing with me. It's probably like this army thing, because I was in the military, and where I have to be part of something bigger than myself. I have to be contributing to a team mission. So that is me contributing to the team.
Excellent. I love that answer. That's so great though.
Yeah. And I think it's really true that when you start out, there's so many things you don't know. And then if you're helping people get going, the same things do come up over and over again. So it's very smart to have a way to say, hey, these will answer your questions. So you
go here.
Your time. Yeah. Well, tell us about what you write.
So I love reading and writing just about everything. I would say literally everything, but not little. I'm not really good at Christian historical romance, even though I love the people who can write that. And I don't write erotica, but basically everything in between those two things. In fact, my husband borrowed my MacBook the other day, because he's a creative as well, and he writes songs. So he doesn't consider himself a singer, but he'll do the demos with the lyrics so that him and his partner can work on it. And he stole my laptop so he could do that. And I went ahead and I outlined a new story that is sci-fi adventure. But I write thrillers. I have a 4-book sweet but steamy romance series I'm hoping to release this spring. So, I mean, there's really, I love to write everything, and I really don't want to limit myself. My goal is to publish 100 titles if I'm able to in this lifetime. Yay. And, Louis L'Amour is my inspiration. So I want to publish 100 titles, and I don't want to limit myself. I see a lot of people get strung up on the money, right? And I would babysit. I have babysit, for other people. I've done babysitting for other people so that I could save up for my editing money, for my cover. So I don't like babysitting. I had like bad experiences when I was a teen, but for my friends, I'm like, oh, can you, watch my kids this weekend? Yes. Yes, I will.
Right.
And I'm more than happy to. So I would write my stories, whether there was money in it or not.
Right.
I want to follow my creative passion. And I know, thankfully, that at least some of the stuff I want to write is in a hot market, like my romantic suspense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have K-Lytics, the report for that just came out, and it is beautiful. Prospects are great.
Yeah.
Well, so quickly, tell us about why Louis L'Amour is your inspiration. Is it because he's prolific? That's an unusual name, not one that doesn't come up a lot.
Yeah, we don't hear that one very often.
I love Louis L'Amour. I think when I really got into him, like I grew up with his books in my mom's little library that we had in our home. And I say like a mini library, it was a half wall that had a bookshelf built in, but she had fantasy, she had Westerns, Greek mythology. My parents had a great selection of books, but Louis L'Amour, I love the old Westerns. I grew up on a horse farm. So anything, the Old West is like the epitome of the horse days, right? So but I was in Iraq and in 2009 to 2010, and I would read on my smoke breaks because back then I smoked. And it was the only time I really got away because I was typically working 12 to 14-hour days, sometimes more, 7 days a week. Sometimes Sundays would be a 10-hour day, sometimes. And so I really did need a mental break, and I loved what I did, but I needed a mental break. So on my breaks, in my cargo pockets for my uniform, they're huge and they're just perfect size for a novel, right? Yeah. So I got the whole 22 book series of the Sacketts, and I read through that. I mean, I just tore through it on my smoke breaks, and just the way he told a story, you can see sometimes in some books where he wasn't into it or he was coming back to it from other projects. And I just fell in love with his style. I fell in love with the tropes, and I fell in love with the way he wove together a story. And although I tried to read other Western authors, they didn't have the same kind of female characters that Louis L'Amour did, even though he's a traditional Western author. He had pretty fierce females. One of his, I forgot, I have it, I think downstairs at my other desk, but one of his novels opens up with an old woman with a .50 caliber rifle. So, I mean, that is fierce, so I really love the way he presented that, and I love the way he could tell a story, and it could have all the same tropes, but I felt like I was reading something new every time, and I was like, gosh, I just love to meet him someday in 2009 or 2010. And of course, then I look him up when I can and realize he's passed away back in 1987. So in the 80s, I'm like, oh, like 2 years after I was born.
Yes, exactly.
But that shows you how timeless his books are.
Yes,
they still appeal now. So that's terrific.
And they still speak to me. And just as an aside, I got the Lost Treasures volume, which is partly narrated by Bo with like little interjections by his son, Bo. And if he could have lived today and been in this self-publishing world where an author could have control, he would have published so much more that was not Westerns. It turns out publishers wouldn't touch anything except Westerns. And he wanted to write so much more. He got to do The Haunted Mesa, which is definitely not a traditional Western, and things like that. But there's so many cool books that he had started and manuscripts he'd been working on that he just couldn't shop out. I think he would have loved to live today and have
in the self. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. I mean, I didn't know that. And my dad loves Louis L'Amour, so that's very cool. So back to your working with authors. Is there anything you wish you'd known about working with authors before you started? Like, because did you start indie or did you start trying to go traditional?
No, I did not start traditional. Especially after working contracting, being in the military. As much as I loved it, I was so tired of control. I wanted control.
I'm a military spouse. I totally understand that.
Yes, I'm like, give me a rule so I can break it.
Yes.
So absolutely. It was one of those things where, again, I want to write for passion. I don't like, if I won an award, that'd be cool, but it's not something that's on my bucket list. Crazy enough as it sounds, it's not important to me. Like I said, even if I poured, hundreds, thousands of dollars into my writing, I will keep doing it because I want to tell these stories. So yeah, I didn't try to go traditional at all, even though my husband and his lack of knowledge, like, you should submit. I'm like, he's like, you'd make so much more money. I was like, honey, that's not how this works.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Yeah. But what do you wish you'd known about working with independently published authors before you started?
Well, I do work with, I do have some hybrid and some trad or coming from trad authors that I work with as well. And I think the biggest thing I wish I'd known is that I am not less confident than anyone else. So in terms of, so many people have these hidden fears and these insecurities, and I'm not the only one who has these insecurities about putting my work out into the world. I'm not the only one who's scared of getting visible. And I think a lot of us, if I would have known this sooner, it would have helped, but we're scared of being visible because then we have to put ourselves out to the world. And what is that going to change for us? Not just what are people going to say, but does that mean we have to step up? We have to step up into this new role, and it could change the way we see ourselves in the world, which means we might have to change our lives.
Right. There is that sort of fear of success almost. For a lot of people.
What will change? And you see this, fortunately, I dabble in both worlds. I did the copywriting. I did, got into Beachbody because one of my friends was like, please. And I was like, well, for you, I'll do anything. But it was interesting to go to a lot of these things and get into that entrepreneur side of the world, where people are exploring that and saying, sometimes we're scared of visibility and scared of success because maybe that's why we're still in this relationship we're in. If we had money, would we leave? If we had money, or if we got that success we want, would we maintain the life that we're living now? Because those kind of changes are the big, scary changes that lurk just beneath the surface of our minds, of our conscious minds. And so thinking, well, if I do succeed, all these things that I dream of might actually come true. And sometimes that's actually scary.
It is. It can be very scary. That's so interesting. Yeah, that's really not something that a lot of people talk about, but it's true.
It's very true. Yeah. Well, since you work with so many authors, what do you see them doing that they are doing because they think they have to, but it isn't producing results?
I think the push and the strive to become a six-figure author as soon as possible. I think that's the most frustrating thing I've seen. And especially in the entrepreneur world, you see people say, oh, do something controversial. And I'm not that kind of person to do it for the sake of doing it. I'm always against the grain. But I found my controversial point. I don't want to be a full-time author. And you guys are the first people I get to share this with. You know why? Because I want to be able to work as many hours as it feels good while living a life of freedom and fulfillment. Freedom is not me working on books 60 to 80 hours to have a six-figure income. Freedom to me is financial freedom. It's being paid off. It's time freedom. It's if my kids are sick and I have to go pick them up from school, I don't say, oh, darn, this is going to impact my deadline. I say, oh, honey, how can I help you feel better? I want freedom in life. I don't want to be tied to another job that ends up burning me out. And I think that's where a lot of burnout comes from, is this, I need to hit this height that I see other authors hitting because that's where I'll find happiness. We have to be happy now. And that actually helps fuel our creativity and our ability to succeed and find opportunities for easy marketing. There is such a thing as easy marketing, but we can't find it when we're desperate. when we're desperate for results, when we're desperate for money, then it's like the goal gets farther away and it gets harder to achieve. Yep. So I really think the biggest thing we can do is look at our own goals and say, what do I really want? What would be awesome to do this year? Mm-hmm. For me, I want to pay off my truck by the spring, which would be nice and early. Mm-hmm. And that's my goal, because yes, I do want to eventually get to 6 figures a year. Actually having previously made double 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, I want to get back to that life. I like that. I like traveling. But for now, as I'm handling a newborn baby, I have little kids who this is that time, this formative time when we get to really bond, and I don't want to miss that. And then they grow up to be teenagers and, we don't have this bond. I don't want to sacrifice my time, my precious time with them to strive for some arbitrary goal that may or may not actually bring me any closer to my children.
Right.
I was very close with my parents. They took us on trips. They did all sorts of stuff with us, and they didn't have 6 figures.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And money doesn't need to be there to be happy.
Right. Yeah. This has come up over and over again. I think it's a theme that we're seeing, even from it makes me think of one of our earliest podcasts with Nathan Van Coops, because he's a part-time author, and how much he loved being a part-time author, because it gave him some flexibility with his writing, and he could try things that he couldn't normally try. But I think it's coming up again and again. And I think it's something that we were all so excited with the potential to make money that, because before it was pretty much out of our control. If you got a traditional deal, then you might, hit that big number and do, but now we're like, we're in control. We can do this. And I feel like the pendulum is kind of swinging back the other way now, where we're not so focused on the money itself, but more like what we enjoy in life.
Yeah. I mean, in my 20 books talk, I'd say that, don't take what you learn here and make your life fit into that. Take what you learn here and make it fit into your life. Because if you're trying to constantly conform your life where you have definite obligations and restrictions simply because of time, children, family members that are, depend on you, sick parents, older parents, whatever it is, you're trying to conform it to fit this model of some people who have freedom to do whatever they want. Yeah. You will make yourself nuts. It will burn you out. You will be sick. You will be, you will not be happy. But if you can take what really highly successful people are doing and make it fit into your life, then that's where you can find fulfillment and happiness. Absolutely. And not be so stressed out, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And just a little thing to add on to that. Why can't we strive for something like I do? My goal is to be a part-time author making quote unquote full-time money.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if for my goals, it could be $3,000 a month would more than pay my bills and give me money to save and money to spend and money to, spoil my kids. But how cool would that be?
Yeah. I see. Yeah. 4-hour work week sounds terrific, doesn't it?
Or even 20.
Yeah. I mean, 4-hour work day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because and I've said this before, I said it in my talk. I mean, I don't have to make all the money. I know what I have to make for my family. I know what I have to make to keep my business running. I know what I have to make. And that's what I strive for. It is not all the money. And so, and that makes me a lot happier than trying to, because they're just, even though we do have control, there's still so much out of our control that, I can't make people buy my books. I can't make people see my books. I can do everything to put it in front of them, but that does not mean they're going to buy it. And so I think that, I just agree. I agree.
I love it.
We'll stop there. I agree. Yeah. What are the most common mistakes you see people making, like in their writing? or in their planning or just setting up their writing business?
Okay. So planning, I think the planning fallacy comes in pretty strongly. And that is when we plan for things to go moderately well.
Mm-hmm.
So like if we're planning.
It's a fallacy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And not saying that we should plan for the worst case scenario, but for example, if you are planning your commute to a new job and you say, okay, how long does it take? You look at Google and you get an idea, and you say, okay, it takes me an hour to get to my new job. So I'm going to plan for, an hour, 10 minutes, whatever. And then there's an accident on the way to work on your first day and you get really upset. Okay. So the fallacy is that we get upset because we get attached to the plan going well. We get attached to the plan going as we saw it in our heads, instead of in our heads or in our planning, accounting for the things that could go wrong or could interrupt or delay our progress. Right. So, for example, I really want to finish editing book 2 this month of my thriller series. I also want to edit a short story because I see that people aren't reading it all the way through. So I'm like, okay, that's my problem. That's my fault. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to fix it. But I know in my planning, the way I do it is, okay, I have Christmas. I love wrapping. I love getting better at wrapping presents. I love, I want to make cookies with the kids. I know that there's things that I want to do. And I have a newborn baby and I'm getting about 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night, cumulative right now. Mm-hmm. So I know that I'm not going to have as much energy. So I'm going to plan, my target, not my goal. I call it a target. My target is to edit the short story in book 2. Mm-hmm. But I know I'm not going to get upset if I have to push that back, because I have all these other things in my life that are either delays because of they're outside of my control, like when the baby decides to wake up and be hungry, mm-hmm. or, when my mother-in-law decides to call, please God, no. But, or things that I can predict, like the joy that I'm going to have building memories, creating memories mm-hmm. with my family. So I've got a target, but I'm not going to get upset because of the things that might delay it. So the planning fallacy is thinking of those things ahead that either you're creating more joy in your life and they're delaying your target, pushing back your target, or remembering that things outside of your control, they're just that, they're outside of your control. And you got to give yourself grace when you have to stop and take care of those things. Mm-hmm. Or like the kids get sick and need to be picked up and taken care of, picked up from school and taken care of. Well, guess what? That's something that I'm so glad I can do for my kids, because I'm not working 2 hours or 2.5 mm-hmm. hours away, mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, so thinking about planning and targets and goals. And another thing is, Jami, you touched on this, but setting goals as things we can control mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. versus my goal is to make $100,000 this year. Well, how about your goal is to improve your marketing so that you reach, X number of people this year with your ads, or you reach X number of people through Facebook, because we can see our reach. The things that we can control is, I'm going to spend 3 hours on marketing activity next week mm-hmm. to reach more people or to grow my visibility. I'm going to set up a giveaway. Mm-hmm. That's a good goal, because that makes you follow through on it. And that's, as long as you're doing the research and planning ahead, completing that is a great goal. It builds mm-hmm. momentum. You can succeed in doing it, and you can grow your visibility. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And those are very concrete, specific things when you think of it like that, instead of like, I'm going to make, or do this kind of vague. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is you make it much more specific, and I like that, and I really like the planning fallacy you point out, because that's something that we do. Like if I'm going to drive somewhere, and I'm always telling my kids, well, if you're supposed to be there at 9, try and plan to be there at 8:45, just in case anything happens. But over and over again, I don't do that in my writing planning. I'm like, oh, I can get this book done in 2 months, no problem. But I don't allow any margin, which is just, I need to do it. You're so right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this would be a good time to talk about the planner since we're talking about goals.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about your planner and how authors use it and kind of where it came from.
So where it came from was I was working, I was writing for local magazines, I was doing the freelance work with business to business and business to consumer copywriting, and business to business. Let me tell you, that is soul draining, but it pays well. So I was doing all these different things, and when I was paying almost $1,200 every paycheck for daycare. And it came to a point where I was so exhausted from the commute because the traffic just gets worse around DC. Mm-hmm. It just gets worse as more and more people move here. They keep building new things right in the center. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so my health was really bad. I ended up in the ER with bronchial pneumonia because I didn't have any time to take care of me. And so I decided to leave my job. Especially since I was struggling to even get my hours. I was like, this just isn't working out for me. It's not working out for them. And I'll just do my freelancing full time. So I started doing that, and I kicked off the ATA. And then I also decided, I'm going to finish my bachelor's and my master's on my GI Bill, which, as you know, is really limited time to do it in. You have it's months. So I had to do double and triple time classes in order to complete it. And that was my goal, because that was something I could control, it was something I knew I could do if I put the effort in. So I was managing all this stuff, and I had a lot of prototypes for my planner. Before I left my job, I'd be planning, okay, I only have a half hour after my commute, getting the kids ready and their stuff ready for the next day and dinner and meals. I have a half hour where I can write. So I knew exactly what I had to write every single day. And that made my time hyper-focused and hyper-productive. And so there was part of that lent itself to creating the planner. And then when I wasn't working full-time at my job anymore, I was doing all these part-time things and taking care of the children. I needed more of those planning tools, and I needed to learn how to manage myself, which I wish I had read the E-Myth Revisited way back then. It's good for anybody who is trying to manage themselves and treat their writing like a business. But so I was trying different planners. I'd go to Office Depot, I'd buy something pretty, and then I'd start using it, and it really didn't fit, and I couldn't stick with it. And then I tried, I was part of I think it was Kickstarter for Panda Planner, and I started it, and then I didn't use it anymore. And then I won a passion planner for an entrepreneur contest. It was, anyway, so I won that, and I was so excited, and it was so pretty, and the binding was so pretty that I was afraid to use it. I was like, I don't want to use this until I'm ready. It's too pretty to mar with my false starts, right? So, and then it just sat there, and I looked at it, and I would try to start using it over the course of a few months, and it just didn't speak to me. It didn't fit me trying to write and manage my life. I needed a business planner that had enough space for me to manage everything. And I know I do a lot. I was doing the freelancing. I was taking care of my kids. I was doing my education double and triple time, and managing, doing the ATA. And I was still writing, submitting to my critique groups, doing NaNoWriMo. And I also submitted for anthologies, and I was accepted. Wow. So I know it's
I'm exhausted just listening to it.
Right. But I see a passion, and that's another reason why I needed the ATA. So I had time to do my side passion. Here's a video, go watch that. Right. That will answer your questions. And so I had all these things that I really wanted that made my life feel fulfilled and also generated income, some of those things. And so I was trying to find the right planner to help me make sure I didn't miss my deadlines. I couldn't afford, with my GI Bill being based on time, I couldn't afford to fail my classes because then I wouldn't get my bachelor's and my master's with the GI Bill. So I was going to buy Carrie Green's planner the first year she released it, but she did a print run. She, invested capital to do a print run, and it was $100 before shipping. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't afford this right now. I couldn't afford it at the time. And so I was waiting and waiting. And then I opened up my email one day and they were all sold out. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm tired of doing this. It was halfway through NaNoWriMo, by the way. And I said, I know it's NaNoWriMo. I should be focusing on my fiction manuscript, but I really, really, really need a planner, and I'm tired of waiting for the perfect one to come along. So I created one based on my need and writing being so important in my life, as well as still having these other things that were important in my life. Not everything is important, but being a mom, finding ways to take care of myself to, prevent burnout and prevent health issues. And my freelancing and generating an income, having a job, that is all important with my writing. Those are my top 4 things. So I created the planner as a way to manage the creative and business aspects, as well as integrate them with the rest of my life. And another thing, one reviewer, she was like, well, I feel like she's trying to fit everything in the kitchen sink in here. There's a lot in there. You know why? Because I'm tired of having pretty notebooks that get lost all over my house, and then I can't find what I need when I need it. That's why it's all in one book now. So my story ideas, which I fill up every year, that section gets full and I have to go to my musings. So that's why those spaces are there. So I keep them on my shelf at my downstairs desk, and I keep them so I can pull them up. What was that story idea? Like I'll ever run out of story ideas, right? Yeah. But I can look at my outlines. I can look at story ideas. I can look at character sketches that I do in my musing sections. And I don't have to say, what notebook was that in? Because the kids like to grab things, and the only thing they will grab is my planners, because I gave them my proof copies. So that they had their own versions and could leave mine alone.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about the different sections of the planner.
Okay. So the front section after the introduction is my vision, and it's all about doing, what we talked about earlier, building your version of what success looks like, building your vision of what you want out of this, and in a way that brings you fulfillment and makes you feel good. Making 6 figures, if it comes at the cost of your health, may not actually feel really good.
Right.
So, and especially if you're spending all that money on medical bills. So the My Vision section is all about helping you get in touch with your why and what really matters to you and why you like to write. What does this writing thing mean to you?
Right.
And then we have building up setting up your manuscripts. What are your top 5 manuscripts for the coming year? Are you going to finish them? Are you going to edit them? Are you going to publish them? Or are you just going to hope to write them this year? What are your top 5 that are most, and I actually ask you, why is this story important to you?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Not just, okay, this is my project priority, but why? For me, like my thriller was number 1 this year in book 2, because those characters needed to tell its story. I touch on very heavy topics like human trafficking and missing persons. And that to me is, I see news articles and it reminds me I need to write these stories because I want to help raise awareness, to some degree about what's going on in our communities that we may not even realize. So for me, that's important. It's important to tell those stories that are inspired by real events. And, but yeah, so I have that. And then I have a section for your editing process, because that can change every year.
Yes. Every project.
It really can. Yes, every project. So I keep notes of my, what am I doing this time that I need to be aware of? And writing it helps me actually ingrain it in my mind. So the next time I'm writing a new draft, I'm like, oh, I did that thing last time. Let me correct that real quick while I'm drafting. And it helps me get better at not making all of the same mistakes over and over again. And you can also lay out which editors you might want to consider for each manuscript, your top 5 most important ones. And then there's also an agents and queries, and I'm going to change that in the coming year to submissions, because some people do like submitting to writing contests, or some people do want to submit traditionally, or they want to query agents. And having a submissions page, it actually tracks who you submitted to, your basic details, because who has ever lost details in their email and you struggle to search for it, right? So just even having this analog way of keeping track of it, it shows too that this is important to you. But I like doing the NYC at midnight contests, and so I write those in that section. And when do I have to, when are my little due dates and deadlines? When will I hear back, or when are we expected to hear back about the winner, so that I know to prepare for round 2? So that's a good section. And then story ideas, of course, the income and expense tracker. I like this. And even though we can do this digitally, and it's really easy with QuickBooks, if you have a lot of income and expenses, then what I like about doing this analog as well is that I have to think a lot more carefully and critically about my expenses when I'm writing them in my planner by hand.
Yes, that is so true. Yeah,
I have to really evaluate. Ooh, do I feel good about writing this in here?
It's almost like when you track your food, you have to write down those calories. It's like, I just don't even know if it's worth it eating that.
Do I have to? Oh man, if I eat this donut, I'll have to write it in my food journal. I don't want to admit it.
Right. Exactly. So that's great.
And then I have my marketing section, and mine means I just want the planner user to take accountability, respond. This is their thing. So I have my vision, my stories, my manuscripts, my editing, my marketing. That's because I want you to embrace what this planner is for you. Right. You don't have to use every section, but you can adapt sections if you need to. But my marketing, oh my goodness, this is my marketing plan. What can you do? Think about collaboration. Think about this. Think about that. You're struggling to do your blog, but you really want to. Well, I actually have where you can sit down at the front of the planner, which you fill out before you begin your year, and come up with 52 blog or podcast ideas. If you're in a brainstorming session, it's actually pretty easy to come up with about half of those in, 15, 20 minutes. And then, wow, now I just need to run with that topic. Right. So it's kind of front loading a lot of this creative and brainstorming process for your marketing, and getting you from feeling overwhelmed with all that you can do to saying, okay, I can think of at least one thing I can start with. And then maybe I can think of the next thing. And then laying out your year. What are you going to focus on marketing each month? A lot of people don't think about that.
Oh, yeah.
And so then you get to the new month and you're like, oh God, what am I going to do for my marketing? And then it really is, when you're running like that, throwing spaghetti at the wall. So when you plan out your marketing year, you can say, January, I'm focusing on my thriller or book 1 to get people in, because in February I'm releasing book 2. So if I'm releasing book 2 in February, then I really need to focus on that marketing for January. It's really important. And then in March, I'm going to focus on my lead magnet so that I can restart the process ahead of releasing book 3. So it really makes you sit down and say, at least get an bird's eye view of your marketing for the year. And I think that has helped so many people really get successful with, or more intentional about their marketing. And with more intention, I feel we can be so much more successful versus kind of running at the last minute for everything.
Right. And especially like if you're running promos on your backlist, something like that is just really great to have it right in front. I mean, yes, of course, we can see it on the computer, but sometimes it's good to have it both places. So you can see, this is for the year what I'm going to do. I love that. Yeah. Yes.
And writing it down, again, it gets that ingrained in your mind.
Yes.
Like, if I have to write down what I'm going to do this month, then it must be important. I'm going to make sure that these 10 strokes count.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for someone like me who is not super, super organized, like what are some things that I can do to get me ready for the new year? Or not just me, but other people like me.
Yeah. So even if you're not super organized, I think the most important thing is looking forward to December 31st, 2022 and saying, how do I want to feel at the end of next year?
Yeah.
Do I want to feel accomplished? Do I want to feel like I had I had a year that was so profoundly filled with love and joy and giving and of course, we know when we give, we open ourselves up more to receive.
Mm-hmm.
So, making time in our schedule, room in our schedule for that, but thinking, how do I want to feel next year?
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick one thing, if it's December 31st and my person that I'm with, my spouse or whoever I'm with, they say, what are you most proud of from the last year? What do I want to tell them?
Yeah.
What would be that one thing?
Right.
Because we can have multiple projects. We can have, I say you can have your 3 goals or targets or objectives, but they should always be prioritized because otherwise you can get to look at them and you can feel like floundering back and forth between, oh, well, shoot, should I do this one? I don't know what to do next. You should never have to say, I don't know what to do next.
Right.
And knowing what is important to you will help you always keep that in mind. Okay. So if you're unorganized or you believe you're unorganized, right? So you believe that you have a hard time with planning, I would say put your targets for the year, your targets, your objectives, the milestones you want to achieve, even if it is a financial milestone that you want to achieve, at least underneath of it, put the actions that you are going to take to attempt to achieve that. But print it off on a single sheet, make it a pretty border on Canva. If you don't have color printer, print it at Office Depot. I print my targets for the year and I put them in my writing space.
Oh, okay.
So that when I look up, when I'm sitting here doing this, oh yeah, that is really important to me.
Right.
Okay. I know exactly what I have to do now.
Okay. That's great. That's great advice, great information. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that because that is something that happens to me. I go, oh crud, it's January 31st and I haven't done any of the, I haven't even started the things I thought I would start because I kind of forget them and stuff. So having them in front of me, that's really good.
And then you can say, well, it may be January 31st. And even though I didn't get as much progress as I want, I know what my year target is. So what is the action that I can take today
to make that happen?
Move toward that thing that is so important to me.
Right.
That is going to make me feel so good.
So in planning, I know you talked about not preparing for the interruptions that will come into your schedule. But what are some of the other things you think people do that kind of get them sidetracked when it comes to setting a plan and then following the plan for the year?
Yeah, I would say attachment. Attachment to the outcome or attachment to the plan, like over attachment. So I love creating my plan. It's really important to me. It helps me sleep better. And there's actually studies behind that. Oh, yeah. And yeah, there are. So I did a text interview for Indie Author Magazine. So you guys can, if they look at the December issue of that, they'll see the studies. I used the references because I have a master's degree.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
So, but it helps me sleep better. And the one thing I've had to learn over the years that I've shared with other people, and it's a discipline, it's a practice, it's not something you can switch on and off, but is when things don't go to plan and you don't achieve your targets or your goals, you can't beat yourself up and say that it's not possible.
Right.
Okay. So if I say I'm driving from West Virginia to Texas and I'm going to go visit Jami, right? And I get stuck in Tennessee. Well, does that mean that, throw out the towel, just throw in the towel, it's all over, I quit, it's never going to happen? No. I say, I guess I got to fix my truck again.
And then I'll go see Jami. Yeah.
I'm going to wait for 2 hours for roadside assistance, and it's going to suck, and I'm going to be mad, but I'm going to, I'm still going to go. I'm still going to make it happen. So thinking of our targets more as like a physical destination and something that you can constantly work toward. So if you have a delay, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't say, I'm so bad at planning, or it's not possible. I mean, the emotional attachment to our goals or to our plans going correctly, and as best as possible, again, planning fallacy, that attachment is so detrimental to building momentum and feeling successful. Sometimes if we can get those small wins and think of our terms and think of our goals in terms of breaking them down into steps, we can build momentum, we can feel successful, and that helps us create progress. It helps make progress faster because we feel good about what we're doing.
Okay. I was going to say, then we feel better because we feel like we have done something, even if it's not the original plan.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's good. You have to be flexible, I think, too. Don't you? I mean, so this is a question I have. Do you plan your whole year and then it doesn't change, or do you adjust as you go along?
My favorite thing in the world are friction pens. You know why? They're erasable. So I had this.
What kind of pens are these?
Friction.
Friction pens. All right, I'm making note of that right now.
So friction, instead of a CT, it's an X. So FRIXION. And these pens are wonderful. So if I go in, for example, my planning in December 2020, I was like, no, I'm going to finish a manuscript a month. I'm going to do it because I survived COVID and I need to make progress because I don't know if I'm going to get COVID again and not make it this time. I didn't think I was going to make it through that first bout of COVID. It was awful. Yeah. It was a heart problem for me, not a lung problem. So my heart rate got down to 38 beats per minute.
Oh my gosh.
And I had severe tachycardia and issues with my heart afterward, as well as the brain issues. So the cognitive function was not there. And I just, what if I get COVID again? Then what if I really want to get these stories out? It's important to me. I want to spend time with my kids, but while they're doing XYZ, I want to fulfill my creative purpose in life. It's really important to me. So I made these huge plans, and then I was starting to get better because I took some medical advice that would hopefully help me get better from the long COVID and relieve those symptoms. And it resulted in me getting pregnant. And I didn't find out. I was like, man, something's wrong. And I kind of like, sometimes you kind of know. You're like, oh no, I think I'm pregnant. And after I'd made all my plans and filled up the front of my planner, I don't fill out every month. I let that come,
right.
Because like I've learned over the past 5 years, things happen. You need to adjust your plan. Well, I definitely needed to adjust my plan this year because the pregnancy was extremely difficult. I was in pain all the time. I was more exhausted than any other pregnancy. I was so sick in that first trimester that I lost 15 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm glad I lost weight, but I'm worried about the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
And thankfully she was perfectly healthy, and she came out perfectly healthy. She came out 8 pounds, 8 ounces. So 90th percentile. And, but I did not have the mental or physical, definitely not the physical energy to fulfill those original goals.
Right.
And instead of beating myself up about it, I said, well, I'm creating a new life, so I guess I'm creating something. And I was like, I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to take each month as it comes, because as I started feeling better and I got out of the sickness, I was like, okay, I have more energy. I can write more now. And any little bit of stress would send me into contractions. Oh. I started having contractions in month 5.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty scary. I couldn't even go walking. I was a step above bed rest. Oh. So it was, and then I was like, well, I'll just sit in my chair and I'll lift weights and, do something about my horrible flabby arms. Nope. It would send me into contractions.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're like, no, stop that. And okay, I guess so. So it was one of those years where, yeah, nothing went to plan.
Right,
And
right.
I still put out an anthology. I organized, I participated in it, and I put out an anthology. I still created new things for other authors. I still worked on my writing. I finished book 2. I still worked on my fiction, my nonfiction, fixing up planners and thinking, oh, what if people want this planning tool? I'm going to create it for me. And if other people want it, that's great too. You know?
Yeah.
And so I still did a lot.
Yes.
I still made so many accomplishments, and I didn't get attached to the fact, because I had practice. I didn't get attached to the plan I had originally created. I learned to roll with life and give myself grace, which is something that takes, again, so much practice. And it's okay, Audrey. Look at what you've got going on. I mean, talk to yourself, call yourself by your first name, your name that you prefer anyway. Call yourself by your name and say, it's okay. You've had these challenges, and you know, think about your inner child, your 5-year-old self. Would you yell at them if they missed their deadline? Would you yell at them if they had a hard day and they didn't get all their homework, quote unquote, done? Right. No. You'd say, it's okay, honey. Give me a hug. It's going to be okay. We can start fresh again tomorrow.
Right. Oh, that's so great. And it's probably great to end on, because I think we all need to do that. I know that I do. And I just have loved this. This is so great. Tell people, well, first of all, tell us what you think you've done to set yourself up for success. It sounds like what you just said, but yeah, tell people what you think you've done to set yourself up for success.
I think what I've done to set myself up for success is really the mindset work is the foundation of it all. And then from that, having the right mindset about marketing, about writing, about setting goals or plans. I like to call them targets or objectives, but setting those things up mentally and understanding that I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to give 100% to what matters to me in this life and the things that I want to give to the world, to share with the world in the time that I have. That is most important to me. And I keep that forefront. And then I build from that, and I break down every target I have into its steps. And I separate. So I have a New Year planning workbook on Etsy. That's not too much of a plug, but I've updated that. I just recently updated it, and I took more time than I planned for, because I was like, you know what we need to do? I want to break down by quarter, not just what you want to do each month, what you want to do creatively, what you want your marketing focus to be, and then what you need to do as far as business and administrative tasks. Like, are you doing quarterly expense report? You do your quarterly
taxes,
Are you doing a quarterly working with your VA and building a new marketing focused or adjusting the plan? What are you doing? What do you need to do on the business side? So breaking that down quarterly also helps you, again, break down those steps so you can have one bite at a time.
Eating that elephant. Yeah.
Otherwise it's overwhelming to think, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do for marketing in the fall. No, I know I'm going to, I want to do a thriller party and for the fall and focus on that horror theme or Halloween theme for a thriller aspect, so that I can get people revved up and excited about my books, So, and do author swaps or whatever. So breaking it down step by step, I think, is crucial to setting ourselves up for success and avoiding the overwhelm that really causes paralysis.
And I think that happens a lot when you try and plan the whole year. Like it seems like too much. And so I think what you said has been really good, because it's like you can figure out what you can do, have like maybe a big overview, but it's not set in stone and it can change, and you can get more detailed as you get closer. So I think it's been really good. So tell people where they can find out more about the planner and where they can go, because you have different versions of it, right?
Yes. So I have a coil bound version, which I love and most people love. And that is on lulu.com. You can also order it through my website where I have all sorts of fun things. There's an online ordering tab on the menu, but it's WRITE.com, WRITE being WRITE, because I thought I was so clever. And I was like, oh, that's just too clever. And I couldn't believe no one else had taken it. So I was like, that's mine. And so I also have the planner is on Amazon as well, but it's KDP. And so I have it for quite a bit less on there. It's $25 because the upcharge for the coil binding is, it's like
right.
more than $10.
Yeah. So, and that one's only at Lulu, right? The one on Amazon is like
we can't
paperback.
Yes, it's a perfect bound paperback on Amazon, but some people do prefer that. And some people hate it. And they're like, why can't we get coil bound on Amazon? Well, because I have to invest a ton of money up front, and then it would be,
it's too much of a headache, right?
It would be, I can't figure out how to do FBA from Lulu to Amazon. I would have to be an in-between shipper, and it would add a lot of money to the cost per planner. And I don't want to do that to people. I don't want this to be $100 planner, because again, I don't want success to be that far out of reach. I don't want a tool that, people are coming up to me in Vegas all the time. And it was really weird because I don't see myself like that, but people are like, your planner was so helpful. And, I got 4 books done in 4 months because of your planner. Like that was like the biggest compliment to me. That's like huge,
That is wonderful. And I think that,
Jami's muted.
Jami, you're muted.
You want to lower the barrier to entry. You don't want to. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I never want success as an author to be something that, you have to have hundreds or thousands of dollars to find.
Right.
And that's why I do these low cost things, because I'm just trying to share with the world and cover the cost of maintenance.
Of these exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome. I've just loved every bit of it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And we'll have all those links in the show notes, and they will be at wishidknownthenpodcast.com. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing the podcast, and Adriel Wiggins for uploading. And we will see y'all next week.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.